This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, we're standing here at one of the most iconic sites in Yerushalayim, at the Windmill, which was constructed under the direction of Moses Montefiore. And we're going to speak about the idea of this project of building this windmill. As we mentioned, in 1845, the Chachamim spoke to Sir Moses about expanding Yerushalayim beyond its borders. Now, it's interesting, there were three great philanthropists who were involved in the expansion of Yerushalayim. Sir Moses Montefiore, Yehuda Toro, who was an American Jew, son of a Sephardic rabbi, who amassed a great fortune, but he was not married and he did not have children, and somebody by the name of Gershom Kurshit. Now, Gershom Kurshit was the grandson of Mendel Sayas of New York. We were actually at his kever in Chinatown in Manhattan, and he was from New Orleans. He was good friends with Yehuda Toro, and Yehuda Toro put Sir Moses Montefiore and Gershom Kurshit on his board, and knowing that he didn't have heirs, and sure enough, when Yehuda Toro passed away, Gershom Kurshit and Sir Moses Montefiore were now in charge of this great estate, which they used to fund the expansion of Yerushalayim. And it's very interesting that much of the funds that were used to build Mishkanot Hashananim came from the funding of Yehuda Toro. Now, why did Moses Montefiore have this windmill constructed? One interesting thing is, the most iconic, one of the many iconic sites of Yerushalayim was an abysmal failure. Moses Montefiore wanted the settlement outside the walls of Yerushalayim to be economically independent, so he figured if he produces this windmill, they'll be able to sell flour for and have a parnasa from the milling industry. So he hired an architect from England. The problem was, this was a great architect, but he did not use chachma. Number one, it's not enough just to build a windmill, you have to build it in the right spot. There's no wind here in Yerushalayim, so there's a windmill, and in only a few years, the windmill became completely outdated. By 1891, the windmill became completely outdated, it broke down, and it was basically useless. Furthermore, the windmill was good for England, where the grain was soft, but the Middle Eastern grain was so hard, the windmill was completely ineffective. But here is an example of the great effort Moses Montefiore poured in to the development of the new Yishuv, and even though this particular project was not successful, but Lefum Tsara Agra, it was the effort he put in here bore fruits in many other places. Now, in Sir Moses Montefiore, when he developed this neighborhood, Mishkanot Hashananim, which again was funded by Yehuda Toro, had very interesting practices. So, for example, in the founding charter of this neighborhood, the residents were asked to say tefillos and learn Mishnayos daily in memory of Yehuda Toro, to honor his yahrzeit, and the cornerstone was laid on the 5th day of Elul in 1855. Now, Moses Montefiore had a takanos that were legislated for the residents of Mishkanos Hashananim. Number one, they had to wash their floors daily. Moses Montefiore was not satisfied with the hygienic conditions within the walls of the old city, and therefore one of the takanos of the new expanded Yerushalayim was the residents had to wash their floors daily. The garbage has to be put out in a special covered place. The mikvah and its area need to be cleaned. The tenants were enjoined to have peace among themselves. And there was a takana that anyone who lived here had to be a Talmid Chacham of note. As we mentioned, there was a problem of wild animals in this area, and in 1866 he commissioned a blacksmith, Rabbi Zalman Basan, to make a huge iron trap. And I'm reading from the book Thy City, Jerusalem, and this trap was placed in a central location, and it had roasted meat, and it lured and trapped various predators who were then transferred to zoos around the world. So this was all part of the efforts of Sir Moses Montefiore, who, when he first came to Yerushalayim, some of the old Yishuv was somewhat suspicious of somebody who came from a very different culture than them, and Rav Shmuel Salant was the one who explained and gave them insight into the true noble intentions of Sir Moses Montefiore. And as we mentioned, a great deal of the expansion of Yerushalayim today is due to the great efforts of Sir Moses Montefiore. May his memory be a blessing.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.